A warm welcome to our history show, and it's welcome back to our most popular guest, I think. Ken Pearce joins us again. Welcome back, Ken.
Thank you.
And today's talk, we're doing the second part of the local railways. You may have seen the first part. This is part 2. Take it away, Ken.
Thank you. Well, in the gripping first instalment, I explained that by 1900, Uxbridge had just one railway line. It was a branch from the main Great Western Line at West Drayton, and the terminus was here in Vine Street. Opened in 1856, it had no rival for half a century. Cowley Station, incidentally, opened in October 1905. Actually, in 1861, a totally different line was proposed, called the Uxbridge and Rickmansworth Railway, and would have linked Uxbridge with the London and North Western Railway at Rickmansworth. So would you believe it, between 1861 and 1899, 11 different schemes were proposed, but they all came to absolutely nothing, and the project was abandoned. But by 1897, 2 local schemes had reached Parliament. One was an extension of the Metropolitan District line from South Harrow and was entitled the Harrow, Uxbridge and Wickham Railway. Parliament gave approval only to the Harrow and Uxbridge extension. But by that time, the Metropolitan District found it didn't have the funds to proceed. But fortunately, the Metropolitan stepped in and took over the scheme. Work began in September 1901 with 600 navvies, 600 workmen, and 3 steam navvies. It was a fairly straightforward project from the engineering point of view, and only a slight delay occurred when cases of smallpox broke out among the workers. The line was laid for either steam or electric traction. Before it opened, of course, it had to be inspected for safety, and the Board of Trade inspector for that task was a certain Major Pringle. Showing amazing enthusiasm, this gentleman had a seat made that fitted onto the front of the locomotive, and he sat there in front all the way from Harrow to Uxbridge to inspect the line. On June the 30th, 1904, the first train steamed into the Belmont Road terminus. That's where Sainsbury's is today. Metropolitan locomotive number 1, suitably decorated, drew carriages holding special guests. Lunch was provided for them in a large marquee set up in the station yard. And at that time, Ruislip was the only station between Harrow and Uxbridge. You notice that was a steam locomotive, but electric trains took over the service 6 months later in January 1905. The second plan to reach Parliament concerned the Acton and High Wycombe Railway, which was a joint venture by the Great Central and the Great Western, and it passed a few miles north of Uxbridge with a station called Denham. That main line opened in 1906. But work then began on a branch line from Denham Station southwards to Uxbridge along the Colne Valley. The intention was not merely for the Great Western to reach Uxbridge, but to extend the line through Uxbridge to join up with their other branch line near Vine Street. A through service would then be possible. A station was built on an embankment at the western end of High Street, roughly opposite the Treaty House, and a bridge was built over the High Street, ready for the continuation of the line. And the Great Western Railway gave Uxbridge a firm promise that this through line would be built, and the railway company purchased all the land necessary to link their 2 branches. Uxbridge High Street Station opened on May the 1st, 1907. Remarkably, Uxbridge now had 3 railway stations, unheard of for a town of relatively small size. There was the original GWR station in Vine Street, the Metropolitan station off Belmont Road, and now the High Street station. Also, by this time, though, a 4th set of rails had reached the town. The London United Tramways had extended their rails to a terminus in High Street near the junction with Harefield Road. So electric trams were now running from Shepherd's Bush to Uxbridge. So there were now 4 rail lines in the town, and all of them were termini. It was said that Uxbridge had a rather end-of-the-line look. But work on the link line between the 2 GWR branches seemed to come to a stop. Were the Great Western beginning to doubt the viability of their scheme? The Metropolitan line, after all, was a strong rival, with stations or halts soon opening at Rayners Lane, Eastcote and Ruislip Manor, hence the rapid spread of Metroland. In 1913, the GWR announced that they had abandoned the idea of building the link line, thereby, of course, breaking their promise made to the town. They produced a plan to compensate local people. The main points were, first, a goods yard would be open by the High Street station. Secondly, the now unwanted land that had been bought would be given to Uxbridge Council free of charge. And finally, the bridge over the High Street, now not needed, would be taken down. These offers proved acceptable to local people, and powers to abandon the project were obtained in 1914. The outbreak of war later that year brought a further challenge to the High Street branch, and eventually in 1917 the line was closed because of lack of use. It reopened in 1920, but was never profitable. Part of the former railway land was added to that given by Cape Fassnidge and formed the Fassnidge Recreation Ground. The old railway part is the strip where the tennis courts and bowls club are to be found. Another section of their land became the Rockingham Recreation Ground. And the High Street Bridge was removed in 1922. Our local paper reported traffic was delayed for a while, and among those held up was Viscount Churchill, the chairman of the Great Western Railway. The paper reported that he watched the work of demolition with interest. This High Street branch was closed to passenger traffic again on the outbreak of war and never reopened. Goods traffic, though, continued. Meanwhile, on the underground system, in 1933, Piccadilly line trains ran through to Uxbridge for the first time. And of course, it soon became apparent that the 2-platform Belmont Road station was inadequate. So London Transport began to look around for a new site, and they found an ideal one in the High Street, right opposite the historic Market House. And so work began on building our present terminus, which opened to traffic in December 1938, and a bus station took shape in the adjacent Bakers Road. The station architect was Charles Holden, who designed a number of underground stations. The station was granted Grade 2 listed status in 1983. In the post-war period, both the former GWR branches suffered the Beeching Axe, and both were closed in 1964. A general conclusion: the railways contributed enormously to the change in character to the district, enabling London to sprawl out westward and to change an ancient market town into an outer London suburb.
There we go. Thanks, Ken. I love the story about the inspector sat on the seat in front of the train inspecting the line.
Yeah.
A bit of a job's worth, isn't he?
Uh,
Right, stay tuned. We've got some more talks coming soon.